So this is my favorite way to solve a quadratic. Maybe because I'm a nerd, I don't know. It comes with a song. You probably remember it from Math 1. If not, we're going to sing it. Woohoo! Okay, so we are going to solve quadratics using the quadratic formula. Okay, so the quadratic formula is right here, in case you have forgotten it. And we're going to sing it to the tune of Pop Goes the Weasel. So, okay, here it comes. X is equal to negative b plus and minus square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And that is how you remember the quadratic formula. That song is going to be stuck in your head forever. I'm sorry. You're going to have a super fun assignment after this. You're going to hate me. Okay. Number 1, we're going to make sure it's in standard form. So we're always going to make sure it's in ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. If it's not, we're going to get it in that form. Number 2, we're going to identify a, b, and c. We're going to substitute them into the formula. And then we're going to simplify, simplify, and simplify. And we're going to simplify radicals if we have to. It's going to be super fun. Okay. Alright, here we go. Okay, so remember that a is the number in front of x squared. So you don't see a number, it's an understood 1. B is the number in front of x, so 2. And c is the constant by itself, so negative 63. So now we're going to substitute them into the formula. X is equal to negative b plus and minus square root b squared minus 4ac, and that's all over 2a. Okay, sorry. Alright, and then I don't know how you learned it in previous math courses, but this is what I say to do. So I take everything under the radical, this stuff right here, and I would say put it in your calculator. Put it exactly like you see it. Do the parentheses the same way I have done. Just try it right now. Put it in your calculator. Okay, so let's simplify this a little bit. X equals, if you have a negative in front of a positive 2, that's a negative 2, plus or minus square root. So when I put all that stuff highlighted in yellow, I got 256 all over 2 times 1 is 2. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is now we're going to simplify this radical. So 256 is a perfect square, so thank you. So now we're just going to rewrite it. When we take the square root of 256, we get 16. That's divided by 2. Okay, so what I need you to understand is when you see that plus and minus sign, that means that there are 2 different equations that you're talking about. So what you have is x equals negative 2 plus 16 over 2. And then you also have x equals negative 2 minus 16 over 2. So that's what the plus and minus means. It means you have one with a plus, one with a minus. Okay. So now we're going to do the tops of the fractions. So negative 2 plus 16 is 14. And then the top of this fraction, negative 2 minus 16 is negative 18. And we're just going to simplify it some more. So x equals 14 divided by 2 is 7. And over here, x equals negative 18 divided by 2 is negative 9. So you have 2 answers. It would hit the x-axis twice at 7 and negative 9. Alright, we're going to do the same thing for this one. Go ahead and identify the values for a, b, and c and put them in the formula. So hopefully you realized that it was not in standard form. You need to get that 1 to the other side by subtracting. So this is what you really have. And then plug them in your formula. Okay, and then we'll begin to simplify. So, and just once again, this is what I do. I'm going to take the stuff in the radical, and I'm going to put that in my calculator. I'm not going to put the radical around it just yet. I'm just going to put the stuff under the radical in the calculator, and I'm going to simplify. Okay, so this is what I have, and sometimes this stresses people out. It's okay. Take a deep breath. So x equals, so the square root of the square root of 0 is just 0. And you don't need to add or subtract 0 because that's nothing. So really what we have is negative 2 divided by negative 2. And negative 2 divided by negative 2 is 1. So you only have one answer. That's perfectly fine. So if you notice, what we've done is our first problem, we had 2 real answers. This problem, we had 1 real answer. And we talked about that in previous lessons. There's 3 things that can happen. You can have 2 real solutions. You can have 1 real solution. And then new to math 2, you can have 2 imaginary solutions. So let's look at this next one. Go ahead and identify A, B, and C. Notice that it's not in standard form. And then put it in the formula. Okay, so when you get this one equal to 0, notice that there's no B term, and that's okay. So the B is just going to be 0. Don't ever put 1 because you're saying there is a B term. So now go ahead and put these in the formula. Okay, so we're going to put this in the calculator. We're not going to put the radical in the calculator, and we're just going to simplify. So a negative 0, that's just 0. It just goes away. So we got plus or minus the square root. When I put all that stuff in the calculator, I got the square root of 96 divided by 2 times negative 8, negative 16. Okay, so now I need to simplify the square root of 96. It's not a perfect square, so I'm going to have to find the biggest perfect square it is divisible by. Okay, so I'm just going to do this over to the side. So the square root of 96 is divisible by 16 and 6. And the square root of 16 is 4, and you can't take the square root of 6. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to replace the square root of 96 with 4 square roots of 6. Okay, you're still not done because you can still simplify something. So disregard the square root and just focus on these numbers right here. So if you were to simplify 4 over negative 16, and you can do this in the calculator and hit math enter, that actually becomes negative 1/4. So there's an understood 1 in front over 4. I got rid of this negative because these two negatives cancel out. So if you were to put this, it's perfectly fine, but it's kind of redundant because you already have like a plus and minus sign anyways, so you're more than likely going to see this one on a test or on the ACT, something like this. Okay, so you disregard the square root because that is an inside number and the other stuff are outside numbers and they're not like terms. Okay, so this one does have 2 solutions. And they're 2 real solutions. You got plus and minus the square root of 6 divided by 4. Alright, let's try this one. Go ahead and put it in standard form. Find A, B, and C. Plug them in. And now I'm going to go ahead and simplify things. So x is equal to negative 10 plus and minus square root. I'm going to put that in my calculator. Divided by negative 2. So I got 68. Okay. So now I need to simplify that square root of 68 because it's not a perfect square. So I'm going to do it over here by the side. I need to find the biggest perfect square that 68 is divisible by. So I got that 4 times 17, which means square root of 4 is 2. So I'm going to replace that square root of 68 with 2 square roots of 17. So here's what it looks like now. I got negative 10 plus or minus 2 square roots of 17 divided by negative 2. Okay, it's not simplified completely because disregard the radical, but just look at these numbers. All 3 of them are divisible by 2, so I'm going to divide them all by 2. So x equals negative 5 plus and minus square root of 17 divided by, and you can either do negative 1, so it could look like that, or it may look like this. So think about the -5 and the -1 being divided by each other, and a negative divided by negative cancels out. So you might also just see this as an answer choice. The one I circled is more than likely to happen. It's kind of like grammar in math. The one I circled, is more grammatically correct. But if you were to put this on a test or quiz, it's not wrong. It's just a little off than what you would normally see. Okay. So go ahead and try this one. It's in standard form, which is great. Pick out the pieces, put them in the radical, and then we're going to simplify together. Okay, so we got some stuff to clean up. So if you have a negative in front of a positive, it becomes -8, plus or minus square root. I'm going to put that on my calculator. On the bottom, I got -6, and I got -20 in the radical. So hopefully you already noticed that this is going to be an imaginary solution. It's going to be imaginary because you have a negative inside the radical. Okay, so I need to simplify the square root of -20. So remember, I'm going to write this as +20 times the square root of -1. I can take the square root of 20, I can simplify a little bit more because I'm looking for the biggest perfect square it's divisible by, which is 4 and 5 and -1. So the square root of 4 becomes plus and minus 2. Remember, the square root of 5 is prime, and then -1 becomes I. So I'm going to replace that square root of -20 with 2i square root of 5. So here's what happens. I got -8 plus or minus 2i square root of 5, and then a -6 on the bottom. Okay, still not done because you have 3 numbers to look at. Disregard the radical. These 3 numbers are all divisible by 2, so I'm going to divide them by 2. So this becomes -4 plus or minus, no need to write a 1, divided by -3. Remember that because 4 and 3 are both negative, I can kind of cancel out the negatives. So really, my answer is going to look like this. So I have 2 imaginary solutions. Okay. Alright, so go ahead and try this one. Get everything to one side, find the values, plug them in the formula. Okay, so I got my quadratic formula. I'm going to start simplifying stuff. The only thing that's tricky here is, remember, if you have a negative in front of a -4, that does become a +4. So just make sure you're paying attention to little things like that. You need to simplify the square root of -64. It becomes 64 times the square root of -1. The square root of 64 is 8. The square root of -1 is I. So this is going to become 4 plus or minus 8i over 10. So now you don't have a radical to worry about, but you're going to look at all 3 of the numbers. They're all 3 divisible by 2. So this is going to become 2 plus or minus 4i divided by 5. You have 2 imaginary solutions. Okay, the next 4 I want you to try. So I want you to pause the video and then play it, and we'll do it super fast. So 1, 2, 3. Okay, so here's how mine work. You can see what I plugged in. You can see what I got inside the radical. You can see how it's simplified, and the very last step was to divide everything by 2. If some of that's not making sense, you can always message me for help. Okay, try this one. I want you to pause the video in 1, 2, 3. Okay, so here you can see my work. The one that I boxed in is the grammatically correct answer. And you can see how I did the steps. If you can't find your mistake, send me a message. Alright, pause the video in 1, 2, 3. Okay, so this one ended up having 2 real answers, -1/2 and -3. Pause the video if you need more time, but I'm going to move on. So I want you to try this one and pause the video in 1, 2, 3. And I think this one is the hardest one. Maybe not. Maybe you like it, but I think it's a little tricky. But you get 2 imaginary answers, plus or minus 5i squared of 3. Message me if this didn't make sense. You can always watch more YouTube videos, stuff like that. But if you're having trouble, I need to know. Okay? So here's a joke. So hopefully you don't hate me too bad after doing all those. Okay, bye!